Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Dave here with Go Gamers, and today we got a Nintendo Switch on our repair bench that is not reading SD cards, and it's not due to the SD card reader. It's actually due to the SD card connector. So let's see if we can replace that and if that will repair our issue. So let's go to the upper cam and see exactly what we got going on. All right, guys, so as you can see, we have a regular standard Nintendo Switch motherboard. I already took it out of the housing and everything just to skip past that process of me showing you me disconnected everything. It's kind of pointless for me to show you guys that, but this is where we are. I've tried multiple SD card readers. Here's two of them. A customer shipped this one in, and they had two SD card readers in there. And you can mold it a certain way and it will read, but it just wouldn't work. So we're going to try to replace that connector. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use what's known as Kapton tape. This is heat reflected. This is what I use to make sure we protect all the components around the motherboard. So I'm going to pop off that little memory unit right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this all around the connector, and I'm going to apply the heat from underneath from this connector because it makes it a little bit more easier. Because the thing is, obviously, if you heat it up from up top, heat touch plastic, plastic melts. So let's get this Kapton tape applied all around this connector, and let's go from there. All right, guys, so we have a good amount of Kapton tape placed around that connector, the SD card connector right here. I have this PCB board on my Hakko Omnivice PCB board holder. Link to all the tools and everything I use is down below in the description if you want to get something like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my bag of connectors, which should be right here. As you can see, I have a small bag of connectors. I'm gonna pull out a connector after we take that one out. So let's go over to our microscope and get a better look at this port. All right, so here we are under the microscope. I'm gonna apply some flux onto the SD card reader. I'm just going to apply it all over it because this is obviously getting taken off anyways. And the type of flux I'm using is also down below in the description as well. And we're going to heat this up and remove this. Okay, I got my Tular heat wand going. I got my fume extraction going. I got my tip underneath it. You guys can see this is what I'm using, a Tular heat wand. I got it set to 440 airflow, and you can see the flux is starting to heat up. We're going to keep our tweezers nearby, and once it's heated up enough, we're going to lift this off of the motherboard. All right, so we got it lifted off the motherboard. And obviously, lifting these SD card connectors off of these motherboards takes a great deal of patience, because if you try to lift it off the motherboard too quickly, you'll end up tearing up and damaging the components around it by applying too much heat to it too quickly. So that's why it takes us a little bit longer, because you want to protect all the components. There's a lot of plastic pieces. We got other plastic connectors around there. We want to make sure 100% of everything doesn't move. And also that's why the Kapton tape is put in place. So I'm applying a little bit more flux to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a little bit of leaded solder. The type of solder with the correct alloy mix that I use is in the link down below in the description. I'm going to come in with my Hakko solder iron once that heats up, and we are going to put all new solder throughout this entire connector. All right, so we can see that that solder looks really, really good right there. So we got all fresh new solder. I'm gonna come in now with I got some 99% IPA. I got a Q-tip. I'm gonna come in and kind of just clean up this area a little bit before we put our new connector down, because I don't want any debris. I don't want anything to be able to stop the new connector from functioning properly. And we can see that that connector looks really, really good once we use this 99% IPA. All right, so that looks good. Let me try different lighting. It's always good to look under these connections under at least two different types of lighting to make sure everything is soldered into place correctly. So that looks good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my connectors out of this bag. And I'm going to place it on that motherboard, and we're going to get ready to get this flowed into place. So I'm going to apply a little bit of Amtech flux, not too much. See, I really, really like this flux because it's clear and you can be able to see through it. That cheap crap that some people get, that stuff you just can't see through the flux, and it makes it very, very difficult when it comes to doing any solder work like this. All right, guys, so as you can see, I got the connector in place. I want to make sure that was aligned. I'm bringing it down towards me just a little bit so I can have it hang off of the desk, off the bench, because it's a little bit easier to flow it when your heat wand can sit directly underneath. Focus this. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm going to start off at 440 again and keep the airflow at 40%. You don't want anything too high or too crazy. As we can see by the looks of it already, the flux is already starting to heat up a little bit. So let's allow the solder to start to flow. And we can see that the connector is starting to move. I think it might be good. I'm gonna let it cool off for the next couple more seconds, and we're gonna touch it. It's easier to flow these things into place because we're using leaded solder, meaning it's low melt, so it doesn't take nowhere near as much to flow it. But looks like it's good. I'm gonna go ahead and apply a little bit more flux now that we have it heated up, and I'm just gonna come around and heat this up just a little bit longer now, because I can see we got good solder connections, but I want to make 100% sure because I don't want to get this thing put back together, tested, and one pin is not fully soldered down into place. So it's always good just to be thorough. So got my heat wand heating back up, and I'm going to kind of tap around it this time with the tweezers. Tapped it around a little bit with the tweezers just to make sure all the solder points was flowed, and that looks good. So I don't have any complaints with that. I'm going to turn off the stream extraction. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to first check around the areas to make sure we didn't mess up any other components, touch any other connectors, because if so, obviously we got to replace or clean up anything that we did possibly touch. So let's get this Kapton tape taken off. All right, so here is the area underneath that we heated up, and we can see from the looks of it, everything looks good. Components look to be intact, no issues. That's because we did a good job of putting on that Kapton tape. These connectors up here look great, and everything looks 100% fine. And we're obviously going to clean all this up. So I'm going to put this back on my PCB board holder. So now we're in this general area. I'm going to take my toothbrush, dip it in some 99% IPA, grab a towel like so, and I'm going to come in and just softly kind of just go around this area. Don't want to go too crazy. Don't want to destroy any of these pins and end up having the same issue that we had previously before. So I'm coming in and just getting in there. All right, so I'll leave it like this. Now a bunch of this is really just IPA kind of just sitting on the board, so this is fine. And plus, remember, we're looking down at a microscopic level, so it may look like it's more than what it really is. But let's look at those pins on that connector. All those pins look good. Let's turn around to the other side and see how this side looks. And that side looks good as well. So like I said, I don't want to go too crazy because I don't want to have any more issues. So that clean should be sufficient. Obviously, if we do have any issues with that clean, we could just go back in and clean it further. But let's go underneath the microscope. Under the upper cam. All right, so yeah, this is what the board looks like right now. So let's get this thing put partially back together. See if we could get the SD card to read now and go from there. All right, so I have it partially put back together. I put one of those SD card readers he shipped with it with my personal SD card in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop it out, pop it back in, and you see it registered it right away, obviously, and forced me to turn it off. I'm actually gonna turn it on without the SD card reader. That was probably a bad move on my part because I turned it on with the SD card reader already inside. So let's turn it back on and let's insert this. And as we can see, and I'm just going to tap it just a little bit just to make sure that the connector does hold it directly into place. And yeah, we can see that everything is good. I'm going to pop it out, pop it back in, and see if it brings it back up. Pop it out, pop it back in. Probably won't bring it up anymore since I already did that. Okay, there it is. So I'm gonna pop it out one more time because you want to make 100% sure. We're gonna pop this thing back in and see, make sure it works now. So goes here. I'm gonna restart it. I'm gonna allow it to format just to make sure there's no hiccups. Then after that, we're gonna get this shit back to this customer. All right, so restart it, formatted it. Let's go over to data management. We can see that it does now fully detect the SD card. I'm gonna pop the padding in here for the SD card reader, and just to ensure that the connector and everything stays good. And we can see that everything is good. So this was a very successful repair. If this video did help you guys out, make sure you guys go ahead and leave a like Also, if you have any questions or if you're experiencing anything additional, let me know down in the comments below. If you want to organize your repair, go to gogamers.com/repair. So also subscribe to the channel if you are brand new. But besides that, I hope to see you guys on the next video, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. See ya.